You know, snowmobiles are a lot more fun when they actually run. The original Walbro on this sled has just been giving me fits recently. If only there was another carburetor out there that would fit on this and could be made to work. Oh, would you look at that? I just so happen to have something that would fit that bill. Now, I've never been particularly fond of these carburetors. It's always been losing prime, and if you can see down there, that's the idle adjustment screw, and that's really kind of a pain to adjust because of this air box. I think they could have done a better setup. Now, I think I gave this carburetor a fair shot. I've ran it for like 3/4 of a season, and it actually ran pretty good, except now something let go in there. I don't know if the metering arm broke or diaphragm tore or something, but it's just pissing fuel right down the carburetor. And it's basically, I'm just over it. So today we're going to be putting on a Mikuni VM34 carburetor. And I will admit I'd probably be willing to fix the Walbro on this, but I already have the VM34 sitting on the shelf. I got it with the 76 liquefier that I got. And I already have the throttle cable and the fuel pump and all of the jets to jet it. So all I really need to buy is the choke cable, the carb boot, and rebuild kits for the fuel pump and this carburetor, which right around $50 is pretty reasonable for this swap, and I'm willing to do that to get away from that Walbro. I guess first thing we need to do is get all these plastic bits off. Off this comes. And then this side. Now the windshield. And now that I loosen up the bolts under here and down here, console should just pop right off. Alright, now we can get a better look at what we're working with. I'm going to take this air box off here, and then I'll detach these cables and get ready to take the carb off. Probably take the fuel lines off too. Alright, here goes the air box. Alright. This bottom one is a real pain in the butt to get to. You got to use a tiny baby screwdriver to get up there, and it's like angled like this, so we'll have to deal with that anymore. Alright, choke cable delete. And throttle cable delete. And then next is taking these bolts off that hold the carb on. We're going to want to keep track of our hardware because we're going to come back and use these nuts and washers. I'm just going to take and cut my fuel lines. Not too short because we're still going to be reusing the sending side. And then also the pulse line. This one's going to have to get replaced. You might want to look away for this part. Oh man, sacrilege. Now that our carb is off, we have to install our fuel pump. So I'm thinking that it should go right around here. This is our fuel line from the tank, and yeah, that's about right. But that also means we need to get a pulse line from the engine out and down to here. And now's the time to do it since we can just take and pull all of these off. Now that our fuel pump is on and fastened down securely and plumbed in, it's time we can put our carb boot on. Now, don't give me any guff for using blue fuel line for the pulse line, because this stuff is super hard. I have no worries that this is going to be collapsing on me. But I suppose now we can take and put on our carb boots. And I will have to be running the little spacer block, because if you can see in there, we'd run out of threads if we didn't have it. So it's got to get put back on. One thing that does have to get modified on our carb boot is these holes need to be drilled out. These are like 3/8 holes, and the studs on there are 7/16. With that on, we can come up here and work on our throttle cable next. The original throttle lever on this snowmobile only had to turn that butterfly, and so it's only got a pull of 22 millimeters. Now it's almost like John Deere himself was watching out for us, because I have a throttle lever for a trail fire, and it just so happens to pull a 34 millimeter carb, and it's directly interchangeable with this lever on this sled. It's got a longer radius and the angle is actually different, so it's further away from the handlebar, and that will give us a longer throw. With the lever that's on there, it would probably only pull the carburetor up to about there, and so we want to get a full pull. Now with that trail fire lever, we should be able to get it almost all the way up, and that'll be good enough for me. And the other thing is, when working with, old plastic bits, you got to be really careful not to break anything. I was lucky and the little cover came off very easily. And we also have to be careful not to lose this little snap ring here, because those like to go shooting across the shop. I got the new lever installed and I got the cable going on, and the cable is also off of a trail fire, and let me tell you, it is just barely long enough. I think I'll be able to make it work, but I think overall the throttle and cable setup from a Cyclone would probably be a lot better fit for this, but this is one of those times where you just gotta piss with the dick you got, and this is what I got. So that means next thing to tackle is going to be our new choke cable here, and I guess I gotta figure out how to get this one out. And now for the part that really pains me, we gotta drill a hole in the dash a little bit bigger. There's no going back now. Dang, that almost looks factory. And I guess we're to the point where we can throw the carb on here. Jetting this is going to be somewhat of a challenge. The closest thing that I could come up with was a 340 trail fire. Same displacement. They had 34 millimeter Mikuni carbs. The trail fire and this Kiort's 340-5 are both piston port engines, whereas like on a Cyclone, that's a reed valve engine, and looking at the jetting charts, it seems like those are a lot richer. So I think this will be the best fit to start from. We're definitely going to have to do some tuning on it though, because a trail fire has the tuned exhaust pipe on it, whereas this one basically just has a muffler. Starting out with a 3.0 cutaway slide valve, I'm going to be running a 30 pilot and a 210 main. The 340 calls for a 200 main, but I only have 210, so little richer isn't going to hurt us, and we'll probably have to change it again anyways. Our needle jet is a PO. I don't have an 06 or 08 that it calls for, so a little bit richer is okay. And the needle is a 6HD 3, and we've got it in the third slot for the E-ring. Okay, I went ahead and got everything set up. I put the choke together and adjusted it, so there's a little bit of play when it's down. The throttle lever, there's just a little play when it's closed. I did go ahead and put a piece of Tygon on it, just because it's easier to get it over this little part, but I think we're ready to test fire. Okay, I got my little squeezy bottle here just to kind of prime it up. Oop. Oh no, we're losing battery. We are pumping fuel, so that's good. I guess we'll just keep going. This is just out of the mag side, but it's not like sopping wet or anything, so maybe you just didn't prime it up yet. Might have to do this the old-fashioned way here. Alright, let's keep going. Hey, that's encouraging. I didn't really expect to get it right away, but it seemed like it needed the choke really to run. Normally you'd only go up one jet size at a time, but I think I'm going to jump to a 35 right away over this 30. Changing pilot jets is relatively easy on these Mikuni carbs. Basically you just got to pop the ball off, and you need a screwdriver that has no shoulder on the side, so it's flat like this. And your pilot jet resides in this hole, so you just gotta put them down in there, and Be careful because they like to strip out. Okay. Dump out our 30. There he goes. And we drop in our 35. Easy as that. Let's give that a try now. Alright, here's with a 35 pilot. So I've got the choke on right now. It likes more choke, and if I shut the choke off, it'll run for a little bit, and then just kind of fiddle out. I've got a 3.0 slide in there. I think I'm going to take and put in my 2.5 cutaway slide. So going to a lower slide cutaway should give us less area for air to go through, and thus making our 35 jet richer. Alright, it's running now, idling just over 2,000 RPM. It's on the 35 pilot jet. We'll let it warm up and see what the spark plugs look like here in a little bit. It's giving our seat just a nice illustrious shine. Alrighty, it's gotten up to temperature, and these plugs are actually pretty hot, but you can see they look decent, so I think we're ready to take her for a test ride. Alright, here we go. I'm gonna watch my foot for that clutch. Alright, let's stop and check the spark plugs quick. Ooh, that's pretty lean, so let's get her back as soon as we can, and we got to get some fatter jets in here. So I'm sure you heard it backfire out of the carb that one time when I let off the throttle, and that's a telltale sign that things are pretty damn lean. So hopefully we make it back over to the shop and don't burn her down. We should be okay. So to change our main jet, we have to take this little cap off, or we could take the whole ball off, but it's a 17 millimeter nut, and that just screws right off. Okay, then we can see our main jet in there, and it's a 6 millimeter hex. So I've got a 6 socket. You just kind of take and loosen it off. You want to be very careful with these because the threads are only brass. Okay, there goes our 210, and I'm going to be putting in a 240. So 3 jet sizes up. We had pretty lean jets before. This should be a good step in the right direction. And then just tight, not too tight, and we'll put our cap back on, and that's all there is to it. Alright, here's a plug with a 240 main jet. That's actually a really good color, if it'll focus on it. There you go. It's nice and tan, but in the mid-range, we keep having this popping issue, and I've got this needle set as high as it can go, so that needle jet in there is as rich as it can be, and we're still lean. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and put in this P-4, which is actually 2 sizes bigger of a needle jet than the P-0 that is in there, and Hopefully that'll richen it up and take care of that popping. It's all just a bunch of trial and error. The P4 really helped out in the mid-range, but it also screwed up our main jet selection. Mostly because the main jet is also metered through the needle jet, and now I gotta play around with it some more. I feel a bit like I'm chasing my own tail here now, so I think I covered all of the main adjustment points, the pilot, needle, and main jet. So I'll just continue fine-tuning, not recording. I'll get back here with what I find works best. Well, it basically took me until the snow was completely gone, but I think I finally got her dialed in. I did stick with the 35 pilot jet, and I did end up going up another couple sizes on the needle jet to a Q-O. And then with that, I also had to bring the main jet back down to 210, seemed to be where it was the happiest. I guess the main thing that I learned was the importance of the needle to needle jet relationship. The Trailfire stock jetting calls for an F needle and that 06 needle jet. And I ended up starting with a DH needle and a, what was it, the PO. Well, the DH is way fatter than the F needle is. So it was lean right from the start, and I had to go all the way up to a QO in order to actually compensate for that bigger needle. First of all, I didn't have an F needle, and second of all, I didn't have the, O-6 that I needed for that F needle. So this works, it'll be fine. I guess the next thing to do is get the clothes back on this pig. There we go. And the very last thing we got to do is put our stickers on so we can actually get some horsepower out of this thing. So if you've watched this far in the video, you must like working on snowmobiles, or watching me work on snowmobiles, and I do a lot of this. So why don't you consider hitting that subscribe button and to stay up to date on everything that I'm doing. I'd appreciate it.